Well, good morning. It's so nice to be here in Albuquerque with my good friend Christine. As if you don't know, she's one of the finest ministers in our movement, and you, as if you don't know, one of the flagship congregations of our movement. I bring you greetings from my congregation, the Vero Beach Fellowship. We're a bit smaller, we're about 225 members, but we bought a failed evangelical megachurch. We have a 1,000-seat sanctuary. We have all of the bells and whistles with all the expensive audio and visual equipment, internet, we got everything. The sexton lives on the property in a 4-bedroom home. We have 390 parking spaces, 28,000 square feet. We have a lot of fun. And we're growing. We're growing well. It's just really nice to be here with you. This is day 8 of my cross-country ride to beat hunger, one of 2 rest days we have scheduled. The second one is in Fort Smith, Arkansas. And when I realized several months ago that my day off was on a Sunday, I called Christine and said, could I share some spiritual perspectives on this ride with you? And she graciously said yes. So far, I want to tell you the ride has gone very well. Steve will tell you it's been ups and downs. We had 105-degree temperatures for a couple of days. And then coming out of Sedona, we had freezing rain, sleet, snow, heavy downpours of 33-degree rain. All of the riders got hypothermia. It was becoming very dangerous, actually. A motel in Flagstaff took pity on us and let us into their lobby so we could shake for the next hour and a half until we got our bodies back into shape. So it's been a rather dramatic ride so far. Yesterday's ride from Gallup was beautiful until we got to the 10-mile hill at the end of 130 miles. But I kind of like 10-mile hill, to tell you the truth, and I'm glad to make it. I'm riding the 3,300 miles from Costa Mesa, California, back home to Vero Beach, where we're having a splash party with about 1,000 people on May 22nd at an oceanside restaurant to raise money to combat hunger. $25,000 is going to a program called Stop Hunger Now, and that's an international program. On June 9th, we're going to package 100,000 meals. They'll be spiced to the country to where they're going, Somalia, Haiti, whatever. We're going to have about 400 kids, high school kids and others involved in this packing day. And $25,000 is going to go to a local food bank called the Harvest Outreach Center, which provides food for the many, many people in our area of the Treasure Coast of Florida. About 33% of the children in our area are food anxious every week, which is why I focused on this ride called the Ride to Beat Hunger. This charity, now that we've gotten a tremendous amount of publicity in Florida, there have been about 40 articles in the newspaper, it's been on television and on radio, and which is why we're approaching our $50,000 goal. I said all along to the community-wide committee that is helping me with this ride, we're going to get an angel. Someone is going to be an angel. And sure enough, our $10,000 angel came forward this week. So every dollar now that people give to the Ride to Beat Hunger is going to be matched by another dollar. So if you are interested, go to the website, the Ride to Beat Hunger. There are cards back there. We have a PayPal account and also a P.O. box if you wish to do it that way. We're going to make our goal. And several people have said to me, you've got to leave this charity open. You've created this vibrant charity. We're going to leave the Ride to Beat Hunger open, keep our website open, and every year do some sort of ride with kids, with cross-country, local. We're going to make this an ongoing charity to beat hunger. And I'm just really pleased about that. As I've said publicly since the beginning of this, to be free of hunger, that is, to have enough food to eat and sustain yourself and your family, is the first and foremost essential human right. And I'm pleased to tell you that many UU congregations across the country have gotten involved. There's going to be an article about this in the new, is the World magazine come out yet? Not yet. It'll be out in a week or so, and you'll be able to read about this. They even have a big picture of me, I understand. So it's really great. Now, some people have asked me where I get the energy and enthusiasm for this, and I thought I was going to have audio visual, but I'm going to show you. This is my grandfather. Can you see him? This is my grandfather, Mark Clayton Ewing, and knock me over with a feather, my cousin's daughter, Amy Cook. Where are you, Amy? Raise your hand. She and I are both direct descendants of Mark Clayton Ewing. Coming up the walk, she said, "Are you a descendant of Mark Clayton Ewing?" And the answer is, yes, I am. He was an amazing man. In his early 20s, he was a circus performer and trick horse rider whose show-stopping routine featured his snatching a lady's handkerchief up from the ground while riding a horse at a full gallop. After his brief years in the circus, he became a salesman for the Climax Chewing Tobacco Company. That is their logo, Climax, Minnesota. That is their logo. And by the way, I got a call from the historical director of this town, and she begged me for a copy of this photograph for their local historical archive, which I gave her. He covered a 5-state territory for this chewing tobacco company, North and South Dakota, Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin, on his bicycle. And he was a star salesman. At the same time, he became perhaps the best racing cyclist in the upper Midwest. And after these wild years, my amazing grandfather started several companies in Wausau, Wisconsin, including the company that became the Wisconsin Public Service Corporation, Wisconsin Electric, which built 5 dams and electrified the northern third of the state. That's all he did. And if you ever see a paper towel dispenser that says Wausau Paper, that's another one of his babies. He was a wild man. So this comes in my genetics. Now, the title of my sermon that I sent in was "Life is Like Riding a Bicycle," and that's an Albert Einstein quote. Here's Albert Einstein on a bicycle, by the way, just so you know. And Albert Einstein's quote is, "Life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving." And that's a nice idea, but I'm not going to talk about that today. I just wanted you to know I was very erudite and sophisticated enough to quote Albert Einstein. What I'm really here to talk to you about today is 4 spiritual practices that I aspire to do on this ride of mine. And the interesting thing about these 4 spiritual practices, which I am trying to do, is that I think they spiritually apply to all of your lives as you live here in this beautiful part of the desert Southwest. Every last thing I want to focus on is something you can focus on as well. So let's get started with these 4 spiritual practices that I identified. First, number 1, for me on this ride, sit up and pay attention. It is so spiritually important, whether you are cycling madly across America or just getting through an ordinary day here in Albuquerque, to simply sit up and pay attention in the day in which you live. This is called mindfulness. Paying purposeful and keen attention to your surroundings, both human and natural, is the most foundational, I think, of all spiritual practices. Because without mindfulness, the kind of deep and caring and connected relationships that make our lives rich and rewarding are not possible. Said more positively, everyday mindfulness enables us to experience life in all of the life-saving richness it offers up. Now, you'll notice that the bike I chose for this ride does not have the drop handlebars. It has straight handlebars. That's because if I'm going to bike across America, I'm going to sit up and look at in the last few days, Steve and I have been riding together, all the beautiful desert landscape. I want to see it. I want to be in it. I don't want to be down. One of the riders that I heard about from the last ride, he was always using the drop handlebars. He actually biked into a semi that was stopped on the shoulder. He did. He didn't hurt himself. He was going slow uphill. The semi had stopped. He hit the back of the semi, which was stopped because he wasn't paying attention. So I want to tell you that the key to life, to richness of life, is to sit up and pay attention. It's a perfect metaphor for how we can know everything that is worth having. You can't build the kind of deep, caring, and attentive relationships with self, with others, with nature, or with God or the Holy Spirit, whatever you call it, if you aren't sitting up and paying attention to right where you live. Now, I know what mindfulness practice looks like in the middle of the high desert, but let me just give you some everyday examples, perhaps for your life here in Albuquerque. Slow your life down a little bit. Take that extra 10 minutes at the morning at the kitchen window with your warm cup of coffee and watch the birds as they frolic among the cacti. Pause during your trip to the grocery store to give a cheerful greeting to the produce guy who is stacking lettuce for you. Share a lunch with that coworker you know is struggling in her life. Take a little longer to tuck in your kids or your grandkids at night. And before you turn in yourself, sit alone in the darkened living room and catalog the little blessings that came your way this day, undeserved, all of them, really. I promise you, I will be riding for the next 21 days or so, upright and alert across America. And you are free to do the same in the lovely landscape that you have before you, no matter how wide or how narrow that landscape is. So, sit up and pay attention. 2, learn to appreciate the flat tires. Now, I had a picture of guys fixing a flat. For those of you who don't know, riding across the country means you have flats, especially on the interstate, where all these little wires that come off the broken truck tires, but that's another whole story. You can't go, some of the people had 3 or 4 or 5 flats yesterday on I-40. It's just part of the deal. Sooner or later you're going to get a flat, or one of the people you're riding with is going to get a flat. And the protocol on a ride like this is if you're with 4 people and one of them gets a flat, you all stop and you all pitch in and help get the flat. Find the little wire. Somebody else gets the tube out, pumps it up. Everyone in the group helps out. Now, I quickly learned that whenever a flat happened, that I have a spiritual choice. I can either resent this and hate it as an irritating moment that's slowing me down and keeping me from the next SAG stop or lunch, or I can take that moment of inconvenience and realize it's a moment to look around, to get off the bike, to have a conversation with the people I'm with, to really, again, get to know the world as an opportunity as opposed to viewing it as a cosmic irritation. So the second spiritual practice that I want to bring to my life, and I think you can all too, is appreciate the flats. Appreciate the inconveniences, the challenges, and spiritually instruct our heads to move with the inevitable complications that happen. The attitude you bring when things go wrong in your life has everything to say about how happy you will be in your life. Now, I suppose you could simply call this my little Buddhist moment in the sermon, kind of go with the flow, and that's true. I do believe it is crucial for our spiritual and emotional health in the often unpredictable and often painful flow of our lives to be as fully and favorably possible right where we are, to embrace the unexpected, to embrace the difficult, to embrace the inconvenient, and move with things as they are, bringing an attitude of enlightened acceptance. So, sit up, pay attention, appreciate the flat tires, and third, participate in pace lines. How many riders know what a pace line is? Raise your hand. Okay. What in God is a pace line? All serious cyclist junkies know. A pace line happens whenever a group of cyclists decides, and most often when a group is facing a headwind or an uphill climb, a pace line is when a small group decides to work together to achieve greater speed at a lower level of physical expenditure. The pace line works this way. You get wheel to wheel as close as you can, and the lead person will pull much as through the wind, much as a V of geese. There's a wind that goes around you, and the lead person will go for a minute or two, and then he'll say, peeling off, and he'll go to the back of the line, and the second person will then pull. The person in front always works hard for a minute or two, and the whole group then, it's almost like a synchronized dance, moves across the desert with a headwind much faster, 20% faster than you could ever work alone. That's what a pace line is. It's a participatory collaboration of people living in community to get to a goal. Ah, what a perfect metaphor for the church. Or for your employment situation, or for any any voluntary association of which you're a part. When you're cycling, there is no such thing really, when you're cycling across the country as I'm doing, there's no such thing really as splendid isolation. It's fine. All of us have ridden alone for a little while in these first 7 days. Sometimes you'll just find yourself alone, and that's actually a wonderful meditative experience. I've had several of those times in the last week. But really the best times are when I'm with Steve or Tom or a few others, and we're sharing the ride together, as Steve and I did yesterday, talking and on the shoulder of I-40 and enjoying one another's company and looking out for one another. So the third spiritual practice is participate in pace lines. Be open to realizing that only in community can people really, really achieve their maximum. And the fourth spiritual practice I want to share with you today is one of my favorites. Stop complaining, be grateful. Yeah, you laugh. The ride that I'm with I'm with 17 others. They have a book that they send out to everyone's going to participate in the ride, and this paragraph caught my eye at the back of this little book that they sent out 3 months ago. The attitude you bring to the ride, they said, will go a long way in helping you reach your goals and getting along with your fellow riders and staff. It's all about choice, they said. If you choose to have a good time, then nothing, not bad weather, not aches and pains, nor tough days in the saddle can spoil your adventure. And then the book goes on and says this: we've seen people who embrace the philosophy that your worst day on a bicycle is better than your best day at the office. Whether it's raining, sleeting, sunny, got a flat, or whatever, nothing seems to keep them from smiling and being pleasant around everyone. Their attitude was, what a great day to have a ride, I'm free to do what I want. While someone else with a different attitude will make everybody's day miserable. They complain if their motel room was not ready when they arrived, their eggs at breakfast were a little too dry, the road on today's route a little too busy or rough, or the lunch truck wasn't fully set up when they arrived at the designated spot. Well, you get the idea, they say. And the last sentence: if you're this type of complaining and unpleasant person who tends to be upset at all the little things that come along, you should seriously consider staying at home. Well, they're right. I am absolutely certain, perhaps more than anything else I can say to you, that the attitude of heart that I choose to bring to the next 3 weeks, the attitude I've already brought to the first week, will go almost entirely to deciding how rewarding and enriching this experience will be for me and for the others who share this ride with me. There was one irritating guy on the last ride that I did. He complained about everything. He was a Germanic engineer from Rockford, Illinois. I won't give you his name. Every time he started to talk on that ride, I thought this famous quote came to me: why should I be happy when there are so many beautiful things to be miserable about? There's another way of getting through a ride, getting through the difficulties. Let me just give some examples about how to stop complaining. At breakfast in Albuquerque 3 years ago, I won't tell you which restaurant, I was served a plate of cold food. So rather than say, "Waitress, this plate of food is cold," I said to her, "Could you stick this in the microwave for 45 seconds for me?" And she did. That's an example of how not to complain and yet get things done. Another way, when the first big day of headwinds come, you can say, "Damn this wind, I hate this wind, I hate this day, this is awful." As opposed to saying, "Well, this wind is going to make me earn my lunch." There's just a different camber. Now, in anticipation for my ride, I got up. You see this little thing here? This little purple bracelet? Let's see if I can get this off. I don't have it on my wrist because I don't like things on my wrist. But this is a Complaint-Free World bracelet. It's a purple thing. How many have heard of this, Complaint-Free World? Will Bowen, a minister in Topeka, he's a Unity minister in Topeka, Kansas, came up with this. He noticed his parishioners were always griping about everything, griping about the coffee at church and the board of directors and his sermon, whatever. So, and he was noticing he was getting awful grumpy too. So he started wearing this purple band, and he read that psychologists say it takes 21 days to form a new pattern in your life. So the idea is that you put it on the right or the left side, or you can put it in the right and left pocket, doesn't matter. Every time you catch yourself complaining, you have to transfer it from the one wrist to the other. And the goal is to go 21 days without having to transfer the band. In other words, not complaining for 21 days. So if you do that, you've achieved a new complaint-free status in your life. At least that's his theory. So I carry this with me very close to me so that I will remember not to complain and simply to be grateful. And when I get back to Vero Beach, I'm going to talk about how I did with that spiritual practice, and I'm going to have 300 of these things out, and I'm going to invite anybody from the congregation who wants to try this for a while to do so. I did that at River Road after the last ride, and I moved 500 of those bands. I don't know how many of them took it seriously, but 500 of them went out the door. So my time is up, and I must be off, but in seminary, I went to seminary in California, and I had this old professor of preaching called Dr. Joseph Barth. And Dr. Joe Barth had throat cancer, and he always gave us these little aphorisms, and one of them was, "Kid, tell him what you're going to tell him, and then tell him what you've told him." So I'm going to tell you what I've told you, because it's the end of the sermon. Sit up and pay attention. Be mindful and open to the landscape which is yours. It is holy. 2, learn to appreciate the flats. Realize that when things don't go your way, there is always a way for you to find meaning and calm and purpose and enjoyment. 3, participate in pace lines. Regularly join with others in coordinated caring efforts to make life better, easier, and faster for all. And last but not least, stop complaining. Be grateful. Life is too short for you to gripe about every way in which life will not devote itself perfectly to your happiness. As we say, give it up, Mary. So, we're all on an adventuresome ride. And I say in closing, go for it, and for God's sake and yours, be glad. And I say and mean, amen.